briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Stefan Baranski, and I'm from Council Public Affairs, and we do work with Samsung C&T here in Ontario.
I understand that Samsung and Government of Ontario had a deal regarding the renewable energy. So could you explain the project and how has it been going so far?
Sure. So in January 2010, almost 2 years ago now, Samsung C&T signed an agreement with the Government of Ontario, along with Samsung's partners KEPCO. They announced an agreement that would see a 2,500 megawatt electricity project built in Ontario, which is both wind power and solar power. About 2,000 megawatts of wind and 500 megawatts of solar power. When this project is complete, it will be the largest wind and solar cluster on the planet, which is something a very exciting prospect for Ontario. It's a project that has not been without some controversy, of course, politically, it being a very political, energy politics in Ontario being a very pressing topic or important topic. But certainly Samsung remains absolutely committed to the program and to their project. They're moving ahead very, very quickly. We're moving ahead, without any delay, really. And, we're really quite excited that very shortly we're going to see the shovels in the ground for the first phase of our project.
So could you explain how this project will benefit economy as a whole and locally?
Well, as a whole, I mean, the Samsung and KEPCO and some of their other manufacturing partners are bringing approximately $7 billion in Canadian dollars in investment to Ontario. It's a massive investment in Ontario, in infrastructure, in energy infrastructure in Ontario. So it's a major, major economic benefit to the province. That benefits everyone in the province. Locally, we have several manufacturing centers that Samsung is setting up with some of their partners, companies like Siemens and SMA Solar and others. These are major, world-leading companies that Samsung is bringing to Ontario to manufacture some of the best and world-leading products for use in Ontario and for export across North America. So it's a very exciting project. So locally, those benefit, in terms of jobs being created in places like Tillsonburg and Windsor, Ontario. Project-wise, there's going to be projects in Kincardine and Chatham-Kent, Haldimand area, and in Kingston and Loyalist Townships. So it's really benefiting locally in terms of job creation and also provincially in terms of bringing $7 billion in investment to Ontario from outside the country. It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm. So tell us, how does the system work? How does it save energy in terms of it's a solar system and there are many different ways to save energy. So could you elaborate on how to save energy?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think what the benefit of this type of energy to Ontario and any jurisdiction is that it's renewable energy. It's energy that runs off the sun and off the wind. It's not fossil fuel driven, which, as you know, contributes to global greenhouse gas emissions. So as Ontario, as a province, has set a target to move away from coal-based energy, for example, it's also put in place a whole regime to build or to bring in renewable energy and to build new renewable energy sources like wind and solar. So that's really the future in Ontario, I think, and certainly it's something that Samsung is going to be playing a very major role in as we go forward.
We understand that the site will be located in somewhere in London, and you told me that there are many different places and it's going to be a huge project. So could you elaborate where the sites will be?
Absolutely. So part of Samsung's agreement is they will build 4 manufacturing facilities in Ontario, and so those have already been announced. One is the most recent was in London, as you mentioned, and that's going to produce solar modules. Solar inverters are going to be produced in Toronto, Ontario, at the Celestica facility. The wind towers for the Samsung projects are going to be produced in Windsor, Ontario. And in fact, on December 7th, they opened that factory. It's the first of the factories to be opened. So it was a very well-attended event. The Premier of Ontario was there and many local dignitaries as well. And then the 4th manufacturing facility is in Tillsonburg, Ontario, where they'll manufacture the blades for the wind towers. So that's the first portion of the investment. The second and longer-term portion really is the actual project areas themselves. So as I mentioned, there would be several project areas, Haldimand, Chatham, outside of Kincardine, Windsor, Kingston, and those are just the first of the 4 phases that have been announced. There's going to be several more phases after that as well.
So when will the construction will begin?
As I mentioned, on the manufacturing facilities or the factories, the first one is already opened on December 7th. The one in Tilsonburg is, I think, the next one that's likely going to open, and then Toronto and London as well after that. Shovels will be in the ground for the project areas. We're hoping mid next year. A lot of that depends on getting the approvals from the government to move forward. So right now, the applications are in with the government. We're now waiting for our applications to be signed off, and once that happens, shovels will be in the ground.
Mm-hmm. This project has been very, it's been a big issue, and there's been a lot of controversy, right?
Yeah.
What is the local residents' response to the new solar system built in the community?
Well, I mean, it's with all of these various renewable energy projects, because the rules were changed by the government a few years ago, I think back in 2008, there has been some both positive and less positive reaction from certain community members. I think you can expect that with any major energy development of any type, that there will always be some, a very real discussion ongoing in local communities. But in communities like Tilsonburg, for example, in Chatham-Kent, there's the projects that Samsungs have been involved with have been very well received. I mean, the company is doing a lot in terms of reaching out to communities, working with local areas to try to sponsor local events and become a member of the community. And I think those efforts are recognized. And certainly, as I said, no energy project in particular is without controversy. But I think Samsung's doing a lot of work, very positive work, to reach out and work with communities.
Is there anything else you want to speak to market and promote the Samsung Renewable plan?
I think the only other point that's really key is that Samsung is bringing a major investment to Ontario at a time when Ontario is really looking to create new jobs, to stimulate investment, particularly foreign direct investment into the province. So it's really a successful investment from that perspective, that there is an interest in Ontario, there is an interest in creating thousands of jobs in Ontario. The Samsung project alone is estimated to create 16,000 direct and indirect jobs over its lifetime. So that's a significant amount of investment and jobs locally in Ontario that will benefit Ontarians. And I think that's really the benefit of this deal, not to mention the cleaner air that we'll all breathe as a result of wind and solar power.
Mm-hmm. So what is the next step for the government of Ontario to make this happen sooner?
Well, I think there's actually a review on right now, the feed-in tariff review. So the feed-in tariff program was brought in 2 years ago. It was really meant to stimulate investment in renewable energy in Ontario. There's a mandatory review after 2 years. It's now underway, and I think a lot of the manufacturers and the project developers have found that the approvals process at the government stage is very slow, and so I think some of that there's a recognition, I think, on all sides that will change, and when that happens, I think it'll be better for everyone, as there'll be a smoother, more reliable, more realistic timeframes involved with these projects.
So yeah, we are really happy that you came here to talk about this, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here.
Yep.